scathing, actually. Can you imagine just being evicted by your own father?
It is, but I've just written a column for The Sun about this.
The real reason King Charles has cut contact with Prince Harry. Angela Levin, Prince Harry's biographer,
said no. Absolutely not. There is no route for Harry to embrace a half-in, half-out royal duty situation.
The iron gates of Buckingham Palace didn't just close this time, they sealed. No more, maybe someday, fairy tales, no more second chances. It's done. Harry and Meghan? Officially erased from the royal picture. And that secret peace mission the palace once dubbed Project Thaw? It's not on ice anymore, it's buried. 6 feet deep. What started as a fragile hope to stitch a broken family back together has now frozen into one of the most ruthless royal exiles Britain's ever seen.
We're not best suited to try and bringing them back in a warm way, but it is pretty sensational, as you say.
It's official. The royal fairy tale the world kept praying would survive has shattered beyond repair. No magic left, no wand to wave, no patching this together. The House of Windsor has carved an icy, unmistakable line, and King Charles, he's crossed the point of no return. No more cautious silence. No more diplomatic smiles. After years of chaos, betrayal, and public disgrace, he's done. The father has stepped aside, and the monarch has taken over. Charles isn't reaching out to heal anymore. He's drawing swords to defend the crown.
To move in also is deeply unfortunate.
Although,
and I would question.
Project Thaw, even the name once sounded like a royal redemption arc. A Hollywood-style comeback scripted for the ages. The promise of melting years of frost between father and son. Inside the palace, it was spoken in hushed tones, like a forbidden pact between two rival kingdoms, the crown and the exiled Sussexes. But this wasn't some casual gesture or hopeful fantasy. It was a meticulously engineered mission, designed by the king's most trusted courtiers, personally approved by Charles himself, a last-ditch attempt to dissolve that glacier of silence dividing the monarchy from its most rebellious prince.
Not going to end with Harry getting his patronages back, getting a palace.
The strategy was flawless on paper. Every moment calculated like a royal ballet. Timed smiles, rehearsed glances, perfectly lit photo ops. Charity visits here, joint speeches there, a parade of happy family, snapshots fed to the public like proof of peace. Every gesture was meant to broadcast one message loud and clear: the war is over. But behind those polished smiles, nothing had changed. It wasn't reconciliation, it was illusion. And in hindsight, the whole thing feels almost tragic, because it was never healing. It was theater. Painfully, disastrously naive.
I think, Kevin, the Andrew bit to me was ill thought through, because that gives all the people who support Meghan and Harry and don't want to believe a bad word about them. I said, well, really? You're going to put the guy that paid this woman who says he never met millions of dollars?
Yeah.
Even Meghan's show-stopping Paris Fashion Week appearance wasn't the surprise it seemed. That wasn't glamour, it was choreography. Every gown, every tilt of her chin, every perfectly timed camera flash was scripted as part of the palace's silent PR symphony. They truly believed a few dazzling headlines and a carefully curated smile could melt years of royal frost. But they underestimated one thing: the world's eyes were sharper than ever. Every move, every frame, every whisper of a royal comeback was dissected in real time. And the illusion began to crack under the weight of global scrutiny.
Charles meeting his grandchildren. And that has to be the end game here, I would suggest.
The royal strategists never saw it coming, the one threat they couldn't spin away: the public's built-in lie detector. After years of Meghan and Harry's tabloid theatrics, people had grown immune to the sparkle. Every smile looked staged, every gesture rehearsed. To the world, this wasn't a tender reunion between a wounded son and his royal family. It was a glossy PR reboot wrapped in diamonds and deceit. What was meant to be a fairy tale redemption looked more like a red carpet performance. And the backlash hit like a storm. Social media tore it to pieces. Headlines turned savage. Even the most devoted royal loyalists couldn't help but scoff. The crowd had spoken, and they weren't buying the show anymore.
Really? You're going to put the guy that paid this woman who says he never met millions of dollars to avoid having his day in court? You're going to give him their cottage because somehow he's better? All I would say to counter that.
Instead of Meghan radiating the grace of a redeemed duchess, she came off like an actress mid-scene. What should have felt like a heartfelt reunion looked more like a choreographed spectacle, a circus dressed in couture. The British press didn't hold back for a second. They tore through the facade, calling it exactly what it was, a royal mirage, polished but hollow. And with that single public misstep, Project Thaw didn't just falter, it froze solid. What was meant to melt the ice only summoned a blizzard, and the chill that followed swept straight through Buckingham Palace.
5-bedroom house is adding insult to injury for them. I do think it's a bad move. I mean, if he needs a house, let him get on a council waiting list like everybody else. Why should he be gifted a multi-million pound
with 2 orangeries and Meghan Markle's yoga room?
By the time the outrage hit King Charles's desk, the truth was undeniable. The fairy tale had gone up in flames. Project Thaw hadn't just failed, it had imploded. Meghan's camp pointed at the palace, accusing them of sabotage. Palace aides fired back, blaming Meghan's relentless need to script every breath, every smile, every headline. And caught in the crossfire was Charles, the father, the king finally facing the one truth he'd spent years pretending wasn't real. You can't heal a family through spin. You can't thaw a heart frozen by ego and PR. Watching from his desk, the king quietly accepted the cruelest reality. He might live out his final years without truly knowing his own grandchildren. A tragedy written by pride on both sides. That's when Charles finally acted. No more staged forgiveness. No more hollow gestures. The curtain fell, and the illusion of unity crumbled for good.
Well, no, but the thing is, this old man doesn't need a 5-bedroom house. I think he needs a 1-bedroom flat in Stevenage.
Well, apparently Andrew doesn't even want Frogmore Cottage. He wants to stay where he is, which is a much larger problem. He would be seeing it as a deal.
The final strike didn't come with a royal announcement. It came quietly, behind the heavy doors of Clarence House. One grey afternoon, King Charles sat across from Prince William. No cameras. No aides. Just a father and son, bearing the crushing weight of 1,000 years of monarchy. And when they finally spoke, their conclusion was ice cold. It's over. Insiders say Charles looked defeated, hollowed out by years of humiliation. Worn down by Harry's explosive confessions, Meghan's relentless spotlight, and the constant betrayal that turned every private word into global spectacle. Every act of grace became ammunition. Every olive branch another headline. And after reviewing the chaos surrounding Meghan's planned comeback, the last fragile piece of Project Thaw, Charles and William didn't flinch. They cut the cord. Instantly. No more money. No more coordination. No more illusions of reconciliation. As one royal aide put it bluntly, they've turned every kindness into a weapon. Within days, discreet memos swept through palace corridors, cease all contact with the Sussex team, suspend collaborations, revoke privileges. In royal terms, that wasn't a warning. It was a quiet execution. And Charles wasn't finished. Palace whispers say he personally ordered his private secretary to remove the Sussexes from every future royal agenda, not just in duty, but in legacy. The message couldn't have been clearer. They are no longer of the crown. When Meghan's PR camp got wind of the decision, panic erupted like wildfire. Phones rang off the hook. Emergency meetings. Frantic attempts to rewrite the story before it devoured them. Leaks of reconciliation efforts began flooding the press, crafted to look warm, misunderstood, forgivable. But Buckingham Palace stayed eerily still. No comment. No rebuttal. Just silence. The most devastating sound of all. And in that silence, one truth echoed louder than ever. King Charles had finally chosen duty over family. Loyalty over love. The Sussex chapter wasn't just closing, it was being erased. Project Thaw, once a fragile hope for peace, had become a marble tombstone marking the death of royal forgiveness. Let's not sugarcoat it. The real turning point wasn't a meeting, or a letter, or even a betrayal whispered in palace halls. It was Netflix. That glittering streaming deal that promised truth and transparency turned out to be the very grenade that blew up their reputation. What began as a glossy docuseries became an international spectacle, not of royal cruelty, but of their own undoing. Millions watched as the couple turned confession into theater. Meghan called the monarchy cold, racist, inhumane. Harry painted his father and brother as villains trapped in their own crown. Every frame sliced through Buckingham Palace like a dagger. And the monarchy? It never forgives. It only remembers. Then came Spare, Harry's tell-all, the supposed window into pain and redemption. But instead of reflection, it reeked of bitterness. What could have been healing became a weaponized diary, packed with wounds meant to hurt. He aired family secrets so raw that even his supporters winced. For a dynasty built on silence, this wasn't vulnerability. It was treason in ink. Project Thaw rose from those ashes, a desperate final attempt to rebuild trust. But how do you rebuild with someone who turns phone calls into podcast clips, texts into leaks, and memories into money? When Harry pitched his half-in, half-out fantasy again, royal perks with Hollywood paychecks, Charles had already made his decision. The crown does not negotiate with betrayal. It endures. And this time, it endured by letting go. Because the truth was merciless, they thought they could torch the palace and still come back for afternoon tea. They forgot the rule every monarch lives by: the crown outlives the chaos. And if there was still a drop of sympathy left in the public, it evaporated fast. The tide turned. Not in whispers, in waves. Across Britain, across timelines, across dinner tables, the verdict was unanimous. People were done. Polls turned brutal. Harry and Meghan's approval ratings hit rock bottom, resting just above Prince Andrew. And in royal math, that's a free fall from grace. Over 90% of Britons said, strip their titles. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a roar. What once looked like rebellion now reeked of opportunism. To the world, they weren't truth-tellers anymore. They were entrepreneurs of betrayal. Even in Sussex, the very soil they were meant to symbolize, locals said it plainly. They don't live here. They don't serve here. They don't speak for us. Meanwhile, the tabloids feasted. Front pages screamed, from royalty to reality TV. The Duke and Duchess of Delusion. Asterisk Meghan's defenders tried spinning it as jealousy, but no one was fooled. Behind palace gates, the mood shifted. Aides, once weary of scandal, finally exhaled. The monarchy doesn't thrive on gossip, it survives on loyalty. And with the public now behind the king, Charles had something he hadn't possessed in years: power without backlash. And when the monarch stands with the people, the verdict is final. Harry and Meghan dreamed of being modern rebels loved by millions. Instead, they became living proof that fairy tales can rot from within. Meghan's Paris Fashion Week return, the grand finale of Project Thaw, was meant to signal rebirth. A duchess reborn in the European spotlight. But the result was catastrophic. Every detail was staged to perfection: the car, the cameras, the couture. And then, the route. That tunnel. The same tunnel where Diana died. The symbolism was explosive. Within hours, social media ignited. Headlines accused her of exploiting Diana's ghost for headlines. Critics called it shameless, tone-deaf. Some even said cruel. Even her closest allies distanced themselves, whispering that it was a catastrophic miscalculation. Instead of redemption, it became a PR autopsy. Memes flooded the internet. French tabloids mocked her. The Paris spectacle wasn't her rebirth, it was her unraveling. And as Buckingham Palace reportedly watched in real time, one conclusion echoed through its marble halls: this is exactly why it can never work. Meghan's obsession with optics had collided head-on with centuries of royal restraint. Harry drifted further into Hollywood fog, podcasts, premieres, and sound bites, powerless to stop the collapse. He couldn't save their brand. He couldn't save the plan. And maybe he couldn't even save himself from fading into irrelevance. By the time Meghan's flight left Paris, what was meant to be the Sussex resurrection had become the final nail in the coffin. The palace didn't have to say a word. The silence and the outrage spoke for them. And this time, King Charles listened.